All right, let's launch into the tutorial here on the Rehab Estimator. Very powerful tool for estimating repair costs on a property, and we're going to also show you how to do it without even setting foot on the property to get a pretty accurate representation of what it's going to cost to repair that property so you can craft an offer. First, let's talk about the tool itself. So at the very beginning, when you first launched Somersault, and you were configuring, you're going to go to the configuration tab, and that's when it's going to set a lot of the default values, which we'll find over here in the prices section. Notice down here at the bottom we can click prices, and these prices are auto-populated based on figures that are initially from some national figures, but ultimately you want to customize this for your area in specific. And this is all these default values are set when you configure the tool by clicking on the configuration menu item here. I'm not going to go into that now because it's covered in an earlier tutorial. However, suffice it to say that once it is set, we can move through the project estimation worksheet pretty rapidly and get a pretty good value of what it's going to cost to repair a property and bring it to market condition. Notice that when I click on one of the detail items here, you get a little flyout window that describes what you're likely to find here and kind of what it's based upon. And when you click this little down arrow, it actually, you'll see single, multi, reshingle, single, multi, reshingle. So that, it echoes it and it kind of tells you what you're likely going to find when you click down on this. So let's say we need to replace a roof, and it's a single family home in our area, and it's going to cost about $6,000. As we move down the list, we can essentially make sure we can use this as a nice checklist to make sure that we don't omit anything that's a critical item that could be rather expensive. And this, of course, you can tailor it. Let's say we do need windows. Let's say we need 12. You can see that this is when it's auto-calculating over here on the far right. So that's, it keeps a nice running total for us, so we don't have to do that in our head or keep track. Most of this column here is numbers. Now we get into some of these things down here like painting and carpet and flooring. That's based on a square foot header. So let's say we needed to do some painting, and bear in mind when we talk about square feet on let's say a single family paint, single family paint, we're not referring to the square footage of the floor, we're referring to the square footage of the walls. So you'll need to calculate the square footage of the walls, and remember it's height times length in a rectangle equals the area. So we want to add up, figure out how tall it is. Most houses are, let's say, 8 feet high. The interior rooms, figure out the approximate length of the floor, and assuming that it's a rectangle, the opposite walls will be the same size. So the long side will be the same on both sides, and the short side will be the same on both sides, give or take. There'll be doors and whatnot in the way, but you can get a pretty good estimate. So let's just say we had 2,000 square feet of painting to do, and let's say we had, I don't know, vinyl flooring in the kitchen or the laundry room or something like that. We'll say yes there, and we'll put in, let's say, 400 square feet, just to give you a flavor of kind of what we're talking about. So you can see how this auto-calculates, and it flows down here to the bottom, gives us a figure. We also have a contingency amount in here for kind of fudge factor, essentially. Gives us our total, and this number automatically, whatever this total number is, automatically gets populated into the analyzer, which is covered in a different tutorial, and is factored into the minimum offer price, in other words, your starting offer price, and what price you don't want to exceed in order to get the profits that you're looking for. So the question is, we've got this great tool here, and we can customize it over here in the prices section. So if we have a configuration for a given property, but we run into a property that isn't typical of what our market has to offer, but we still want to work on it, we can actually change the figures in here for that specific property, and we'll automatically tie it to that address, which you'll see up here at the top. You can see right here's the address. In this case, it's an Emeryville property in California. And it will tie this particular worksheet to that particular address. And so every time we come back to 81 city limits, this customized project estimation worksheet would come up rather than the default values. So if we customize it, it remembers, which is a really nice feature. Now if we come over here into the strategy coach section, this will help guide us when we're talking to the seller. We want to kind of open up the Investing with Somersault section, come down here into the gather information section, and then use Rehab Estimator to lead you through some questions section. And click on the plus signs, and you can see it expands that area. So if we click on plus here, what kind of roof do you have, as an example, this will go through it here, and give you some questions. How old is it? What kind And if do you know if there are any leaks? So if it's a 15-year-old, if it's a shingle roof that's got, let's say, a 15-year life, and you're 12 years into that cycle, or if it's leaking, well, you're going to need to replace it. And so when you ask the seller that, you just mark it over here. Okay, I need to replace that. That's going to have to factor into my costs. Number of stories would come in handy from a painting or roofing standpoint. How much square footage the roof might be relative to the actual total square footage of the property. Obviously, a 2-story house that's 2,000 square feet is going to have a smaller roof line than a single-story house that's 2,000 square feet. What kind of siding's on the house? Is the siding solid? Are there any cracks? If it's painted, is it chipped, or what kind of condition is it in? Again, these are all questions that'll help guide you through, and these are in the same order here as the fields in the rehab estimator. This will guide you through the appropriate questions to ask. Another thing to note is you can customize the strategy coach. So if you have specific features in your community that aren't noted here that you want to make sure that you're asking the seller, and you'll know this over time as you get into this and you have contractors kind of give you guidance and you have more experience, you can actually tailor the strategy coach to specific questions that are relevant for your area. And that's the whole key to Somersault, is the customization of it to your specific region, rather than having it geared towards some mythical national average figure or national average house, which may not particularly be relevant to your specific situation. So feel free to edit your strategy coach and then save it. Again, strategy coach tutorials in other sections of the strategy coach tutorial and help menu here. Project estimator. Use this to help guide you to determine the value of the cost of the repairs that you're going to need to effect for a given property to make it market ready. You can customize the prices over here under prices after you've set your defaults in the configuration process, again covered in another tutorial. And you can print this out and take it with you so that when you make an offer to the seller, you want to make sure that you double check your answers here against the actual condition of the property when you get there. Of course, you need to verify that what the seller has told you is consistent with the reality of the property. And if you need to reevaluate and then renegotiate when you're there based on new information, you can do so, and you have a valid position from which to move, because you can show the seller that they told you X when in fact Y was the truth. So there you have it on the Rehab Estimator. I think you're really going to enjoy this and find it very useful in terms of helping you determine the approximate rehab costs of a property even before you go out to see it. Thank you so much. Happy investing.